The Awakening of Titans. Commander Alexis Mercer stood motionless on the observation deck of the EDF Retribution, her weathered face illuminated by the ghostly blue light of the holographic display. At 47, the silver streaks in her dark hair weren't from age but from stress, the kind that came from watching your world burn. The massive vessel, nearly 3 kilometers long and bristling with weapons that didn't exist 8 years ago, represented humanity's transformation from prey to predator. "All systems report ready, Commander," said Lieutenant Ezra Chen, his voice carrying the steady confidence of someone who had survived hell and emerged stronger. "The fleet awaits your order." Mercer nodded, her eyes never leaving the tactical display showing the Varaxian Homeworld, a rust-colored planet orbiting a yellow star some 30 light-years from Earth. It looked peaceful from this distance, deceptively so. 8 years ago, the Varaxians had appeared in Earth's orbit without warning, insectoid beings in crystalline ships that rained destruction upon major cities with methodical precision. New York, Shanghai, Lagos, and Moscow were the first to fall. Billions died in the initial assault. Those who survived told stories of the aliens harvesting humans, taking them to their ships for unimaginable purposes. "Open fleet-wide communications," Mercer ordered, her voice steady despite the weight of what they were about to do. When the channel opened, she took a deep breath. 573 warships, representing every nation that still existed on Earth, awaited her command. The largest military force humanity had ever assembled, united by a shared trauma and a single purpose. "This is Commander Mercer. 8 years ago, the Varaxians came to our world. They did not seek to communicate or negotiate. They did not recognize our attempts at surrender. They harvested our cities, our resources, and our people like crops." She paused, letting the shared memory wash over the crews of every ship. "They believed us weak. They were catastrophically wrong." The early days after the invasion had been desperate. Conventional weapons proved nearly useless against Varaxian shields. Nuclear strikes were met with countermeasures that made them detonate prematurely. Humanity retreated, scattered, and then, in isolated pockets around the globe, began to innovate. Dr. Sanjay Kapoor had been the first breakthrough. Working from a hidden facility in the Himalayas, he managed to reverse engineer a crashed Varaxian scout ship. His discovery of their quantum-linked communication system allowed the remnants of humanity to coordinate their resistance for the first time. Soon after, a team in Brazil cracked the secret of the alien shield technology. "We adapted," Mercer continued. "We united as one species with one purpose: survival. We studied their technology, learned their weaknesses, and evolved in ways they never anticipated. Today, we bring the war to their doorstep." The tactical display showed the Varaxians scrambling to form defensive positions. Their ships, once terrifying in their crystalline beauty, now seemed fragile, vulnerable. Intelligence suggested they had never faced a serious challenge from another species. They had grown complacent in their superiority. "Commence Operation Nemesis," Mercer commanded. The human fleet moved with choreographed precision. Unlike the chaotic individual brilliance that had characterized early resistance, this was the product of years of ruthless evolution. The EDF had become a weapon honed by necessity and desperation. Chief Science Officer Dr. Elena Novak stood silently beside Mercer. Her creation, the Stellar Hammer, represented humanity's terrible answer to existential threat. A relatively small device, no larger than a shuttle, it contained technology that would have been unimaginable 8 years ago. "Targeting solutions are locked," reported Lieutenant Chen. "The device is primed and ready for deployment." "Launch the hammer," Mercer ordered. From the center of the human formation, a single vessel released the device. The Varaxian defenses immediately focused on it, but their energy weapons passed harmlessly through its phase-shifted state. Another technology born from humanity's desperate innovation. As the hammer descended toward the planet's surface, Mercer's communications officer reported, "Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the Varaxian High Command." On screen, Mercer said, her expression unchanged, The main view screen displayed the chitinous face of a Voraxian leader, its compound eyes reflecting a multitude of images. When it spoke, the translation software converted its clicks and whistles into a monotone English voice. Humans, we recognize your technological advancement. We offer immediate cessation of hostilities. We will withdraw from your territories and offer reparations for damages. Your species has proven itself worthy of consideration. A cold silence fell over the bridge. Lieutenant Chen's hand tightened on his console. Dr. Novak looked away, her face a mask of conflicted emotions. 8 years ago, Mercer responded, her voice glacial. Millions of humans begged for mercy. Children pleaded for their lives as your harvesters extracted them from their hiding places. You called our pleas noise and continued your slaughter. The Voraxians' antennae twitched, a sign of agitation their intelligence analysts had identified. That was before we understood your sentience level. We have revised our assessment. You are now classified as intelligent life worthy of diplomatic engagement. Today, Mercer continued as if the alien hadn't spoken, we teach you the difference between mercy and weakness. She terminated the transmission with a gesture. Ethical debates had raged during the planning stages of Operation Nemesis. Some argued for a measured response, perhaps destroying military installations only or demanding surrender. But the memories of harvested cities and billions of dead had won out. The vote among Earth's remaining leaders had been nearly unanimous. On the view screen, the stellar hammer penetrated the planet's atmosphere, its quantum fields rendering it impervious to the frantic defensive fire from the surface. When it reached its designated altitude, it activated. The effect wasn't immediate. For perhaps 30 seconds, nothing seemed to happen. Then, fissures of brilliant light began to crack across the planet's surface like spiderwebs on glass. All vessels, prepare for gravitational disturbance, Mercer ordered calmly. The Voraxian ships scattered in panic, breaking formation and attempting to flee. Some managed to jump to faster-than-light travel, but many were caught in what happened next. The planet's destruction wasn't violent in the way of explosive force. Instead, it imploded with terrible elegance. The stellar hammer had initiated a cascading quantum collapse of the planet's atomic structure. The entirety of the Voraxian civilization, a species that had existed for perhaps thousands of years longer than humans, compressed into a singularity that blinked out of existence in less than a minute. A stunned silence fell over the human fleet. Lieutenant Chen broke it first. Target eliminated, Commander. Mercer released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Send word to Earth. The primary threat has been neutralized. As the message was transmitted, Dr. Novak spoke softly. Was this justice or vengeance, Commander? Mercer watched the empty space where a civilization had existed moments before, where billions of Voraxians, many perhaps innocent of the decisions of their leaders, had perished in an instant. Neither, she answered after a long pause. This was survival. The galaxy now knows that humanity will not go quietly into extinction. She turned from the viewport, her duty fulfilled but her conscience far from clear. Set course for Earth. We're going home. Behind them, only debris and gravitational anomalies remained of the species that had underestimated humanity's capacity for both suffering and retribution. A warning written in the void for any who might consider Earth an easy conquest in the future. Humanity had not merely survived. It had evolved into something the galaxy would learn to fear. The reckoning. The journey back to Earth took 17 days, each one heavier than the last. The initial euphoria among the crew, the primal satisfaction of revenge fulfilled, had quickly faded, replaced by a more complex emotional landscape. Commander Alexis Mercer spent most of those days in her quarters, reviewing reports and preparing for what came next. On the 18th day, Lieutenant Chen found her on the observation deck, staring at the stars. We'll reach Earth in 6 hours, Commander, he said, standing at a respectful distance. Mercer nodded without turning. Thank you, Lieutenant. Chen hesitated, then added, the fleet captains are requesting a final briefing before arrival. They want to know how we're presenting this to the civilian population. Now she turned, her face showing the fatigue of someone carrying an immense weight. "The truth, Lieutenant. We tell them the truth. We destroyed an entire civilization because we judged it necessary for our survival. Some will call it genocide," Chen said quietly. "Some will be correct," Mercer replied. "History isn't kind to those who commit atrocities, even in self-defense. I've made my peace with that." The conversation was interrupted by Dr. Novik's urgent voice over the comm system. "Commander, Lieutenant, you need to come to the sensor lab immediately." Minutes later, they stood before a holographic display, showing readings that made little sense at first glance. "We've detected quantum echoes," Novik explained, her voice tense. "Similar to the signatures we saw during the Stellar Hammer's deployment, but these are coming from multiple vectors." "Meaning what exactly?" Mercer asked, though the cold dread in her stomach suggested she already knew. "The Voraxian homeworld wasn't their only world," Novik said grimly. "We're detecting at least 7 other stellar systems with similar quantum signatures. And they're active, increasingly so in the past few hours." Chen's face paled. "They know what we did." "Worse," Novik continued. "We've detected a massive surge in faster-than-light travel toward Earth. The remaining Voraxian colonies have launched everything they have at us. Conservative estimate puts their combined fleet at nearly twice our size." Mercer absorbed this information with outward calm, though her mind raced through calculations and possibilities. "How long do we have?" 4 days, maybe 5, Novik answered. "They're pushing their drives beyond safe parameters." Mercer's decision came quickly. "Alert the fleet. All ships to battle stations. Lieutenant Chen, prepare a message to Earth. High priority to all defense installations." As her officers rushed to comply, Mercer remained alone with the holographic display. The bright dots representing Voraxian ships were converging from multiple directions, their trajectory unmistakably aimed at Earth. She had believed Operation Nemesis would end the war. Instead, it had escalated it beyond imagination. When the fleet arrived at Earth, they found a planet transformed yet again. The orbital defense platforms, hastily constructed over the past 8 years, were fully activated. The surface blazed with the energy signatures of planetary shield generators. Humanity had used the respite provided by the EDF's offensive to reinforce their homeworld. Fleet Admiral Takashi Yamamoto, the highest-ranking military officer remaining on Earth, greeted Mercer via holographic projection as soon as the Retribution entered orbit. "Commander Mercer, your mission report has been received and analyzed," he said, his weathered face giving away nothing. "While the unified Earth government acknowledges the destruction of the Voraxian homeworld, we are now facing the consequences of that action. We're prepared to defend Earth with everything we have." "Admiral," Mercer responded, "the Retribution and the entire fleet are at your disposal." Yamamoto nodded. "We've activated Protocol Omega. All civilian populations are being moved to underground shelters. Every available ship has been armed and mobilized." He paused, then added, "The Unified Council has also approved deployment of the Deadlight Array." Mercer's eyes widened slightly. The Deadlight Array, a system of satellites capable of generating a quantum disruption field around the entire planet, was theoretical when she had departed. It was designed as an absolute last resort, as it would prevent any ship from entering or leaving Earth's orbit for potentially decades. "So we're preparing for a siege," she said quietly. "We're preparing for survival, Commander," Yamamoto corrected. "As you demonstrated at the Voraxian homeworld, humanity will do whatever it takes." The next 4 days passed in a blur of preparation. Mercer barely slept, dividing her time between strategic planning sessions and inspecting the fleet's readiness. The Retribution's crew worked around the clock, repairing minor damage and optimizing weapon systems. On the 5th day, the sensors detected the first wave of the Voraxian counterattack. They had dropped out of FTL at the edge of the solar system. Lieutenant Chen reported, his voice steady despite the tension. "Counting over 900 vessels of various sizes. They're forming into attack groups." Mercer took her position at the command center of the combined defense fleet. Earth's orbital space had become a forest of warships and defense platforms, all awaiting her orders. "All ships, maintain position," she commanded. "Let them come to us. We have the home field advantage." As the Voraxian fleet approached, something unexpected happened. A single ship, smaller than the others, and bearing markings that intelligence identified as diplomatic, broke formation and transmitted on all frequencies. "We request communication with the human leader responsible for the destruction of Vorax Prime," came the translated message. After consulting with Admiral Yamamoto, Mercer authorized the transmission. The main view screen displayed a Voraxian different from those she had seen before, older, with faded carapace and cloudy compound eyes. "I am Elder Xanthi of the remaining Voraxian collective," it began. "You have demonstrated your species' capacity for both technological advancement and ruthless action. Before we engage in mutual annihilation, I offer you information you do not possess." Mercer's expression remained neutral. "Speak, Elder Xanthi. We're listening." "The harvesting of your world was not conducted by Voraxian Central Authority, but by a rogue military faction led by Hive Commander Cthar. When your fleet destroyed Vorax Prime, you eliminated our central government, which had actually dispatched me to establish communication and offer reparations." Murmurs spread across the bridge. Mercer silenced them with a raised hand. "You expect us to believe that your people were coming to apologize after 8 years of systematic destruction. Not apologize. Make amends," Xanthi corrected. "Voraxian justice moves slowly but inexorably. Commander of Cthar's actions were deemed unauthorized and excessive 3 of your years ago. Our council had voted to establish contact and offer technological exchange as compensation." The alien's mandibles clicked in what might have been sorrow. "Now that council is ash, and we face extinction at each other's hands." A heavy silence fell over the command center. Mercer exchanged glances with her senior officers, seeing the conflict in their eyes that she felt in her own heart. "Verify," she ordered the intelligence division. "Check all our encounters with the Voraxians over the past 3 years. Look for any pattern changes consistent with this claim." While they worked, Mercer maintained the communication. "Even if what you say is true, Elder Xanthi, it doesn't change the fact that billions of humans died. It doesn't erase 8 years of fighting for our very existence." "No," the Voraxian agreed. "Just as your action does not erase the billions of innocent Voraxians who perished on our homeworld, beings who had never encountered a human, never participated in military actions, never even knew your species existed until their final moments." The intelligence division reported back. There had indeed been subtle changes in Voraxian attack patterns over the past 3 years. Fewer civilian targets, more precise military engagements, and several instances where Voraxian ships had withdrawn rather than press an advantage. "What do you propose, Elder?" Mercer finally asked. "Coexistence," Xanthi replied simply. "Neither of us can undo what has been done, but we can choose what happens next. We can destroy each other completely, or we can acknowledge that both our species have demonstrated both terrible cruelty and a capacity for growth." Admiral Yamamoto joined the conversation. "The Voraxians would need to withdraw from Earth space immediately and provide technological reparations, and humans would need to assist in the relocation of our surviving colonies to habitable worlds," Xanthi countered, "and share the quantum technologies you developed." The negotiations lasted 3 days, conducted while both fleets remained in position, weapons primed. Trust came slowly, painfully, with small concessions on both sides. On the 4th day, the unified Earth government and the remaining Voraxian collective signed what would later be called the Coexistence Accord. Both species would maintain their sovereignty but establish exchange programs for technology, resources, and eventually, cultural understanding. As the Voraxian fleet began its withdrawal from Earth space, Commander Mercer stood again on the observation deck of the Retribution, watching the crystalline ships shimmer as they prepared for FTL jumps. Dr. Novak joined her, her expression thoughtful. Not how any of us expected this to end. It hasn't ended, Mercer replied. This is just the beginning of something new, something neither species would have chosen, but both might need. Do you think we can ever truly trust them? Novak asked. After everything. Mercer considered this for a long moment. I think trust is earned slowly and lost instantly. I think both humans and Voraxians have learned it the hard way. She turned to face her friend. But I also think that if two species can step back from the brink of mutual destruction, anything is possible. As the last Voraxian ship disappeared into the darkness of space, Mercer thought about the message that would spread across the galaxy from these events. Not simply that humanity would defend itself with terrible force when threatened, but that it could also find a path to peace even after the most devastating of conflicts. Perhaps that, more than the destruction of Vorax Prime, would be humanity's true legacy among the stars. Set course for the new joint outpost, she ordered as she returned to the bridge. We have work to do. The Retribution's engines hummed as the massive vessel turned away from Earth, heading not toward destruction this time, but toward an uncertain future that at least held the possibility of something better than mere survival.